Welcome to another episode of the Ground Control Branching Out podcast. I'm your host, Neil Bailey, and in this episode we are talking to Brian Smith, and my goodness do we talk. We're getting into curiosity, the Republic of Ireland, faith, homelessness, net zero. We cover it all. So let's get straight into it and hear directly from Brian himself. So welcome, Brian. Thanks for coming along to the podcast. If you would, for us, just introduce yourself. So just who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so it's Brian Smith and I am the Sales and Marketing Director for Ground Control.
Lovely. And what does that mean? What does a typical day look like for Brian?
It rarely involves a podcast, but what it does do is involve my role really is to think about all the ways in which we can generate revenue for Ground Control. We're here to make us interesting to people who don't know us, keep us interesting to people who do know us, and find ways in which we can stimulate interest in working with Ground Control, whether it's people who've never worked with us before, people who work with us lots of times and didn't know what else we do, and also people who can bring us an angle or a service that we can add to what we don't do today that's going to make us more meaningful to a customer. But fundamentally, It's about attraction, it's about engagement, and then it's about satisfaction. So we're making sure that people are interested in us, want to work with us, and once they do work with us, are satisfied enough to stay with us and then want to do more work with us.
Okay, so you're doing a lot of that thinking, that strategic look at, okay, what is going to bring us in more sales, or as you say, make use of the ones we've already got. So for the non-sales people out there who maybe sales is a bit of either a scary thing or no, cold calling, from your perspective, what would you say is the main thing about sales? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I get what people think and why they would be like that, but actually a lot of it is about being curious. I always I always talk about ABCs for sales, and I think one of the things that and this will be true of marketing as well, so if you blend the two together in that regard, it's about being curious, and so I always tell the sales team with always be curious. If you're interested in life and you're interested in folk, sales is a great vocation and it's a great career, because you find out what people really need, what they want, what's important to them, what motivates them, and from that, being someone who's quite solution driven orientated, I'd love to come up with ideas and ways to solve problems, all that kind of stuff. Sales is actually a great career. So yes, some of it starts with, and always has to start with, a first contact, a first conversation, and some of it's, and therefore it can feel like cold calling, but I can possibly do that. But fundamentally, if you're interested in life, you're passionate about what you do, then having a conversation with someone else, like we're doing right now, Neil, is actually quite natural and quite normal. And in truth, we all do it every day.
Yes. Yeah.
So to demystify it, I'm just having the conversation with you like I would a customer.
Yeah.
And then we start asking questions, get to know each other a bit better, and we start to build up okay, so what is it you need? What is it you want? Why do you want it? And how can we go away and help you find an answer to what it is you're trying to do?
Yeah. So what do you personally find exciting about your role?
The fact that I get to shape the future of Ground Control.
Right.
And that's brilliant. And the reason I find that exciting is because I love the company I work for. I love the people that I work with and around and for. I think it's one of the best cultures I've ever worked in. And I think what we do has an opportunity, or at least the potential, to make a big difference to the planet that we live in, or the country that we live in, because of the services that we offer and all of the current interest around net zero and net gain. I don't think I've worked anywhere yet in my career, Neil, where I've had the opportunity to affect so many people.
Right.
In a positive way. Now, all of us can affect people in a positive way. All of us can affect people in a negative way, by the way, if we're not careful. But I think the excitement for me is understanding the potential Ground Control has got. And I didn't know all that on day one, by the way, because sometimes you have to get to know who we are and where we're headed and why we're doing it. But when you realise what we can do, where we can do it, who we can do it for, I start to get really excited because I think, flipping it, there's a lot that we can go for here, and there's a lot of change that we can continue and instigate, short and long term, that will long outlast my time with ground control, that I'm really pleased about. So my current horizons go right out to 2060 in the way that I'm thinking for ground control, as well as what happens tomorrow and next week and all that sort of stuff in the meantime. But yeah, so I think it's a great job. It's a great company with a great opportunity and huge potential.
Yeah. And with your kind of fingers out there in all kind of the different pies, you're obviously talking building relationships with a lot of different organizations, different sectors, all that kind of stuff. I'm interested kind of to get your view on what would you say are the main challenges? And I would come at this from possibly two perspectives. So we can do one at a time unless they're the same thing. What would you say are kind of the biggest challenges at the moment for us as a company, as a business? And what would you say are the biggest challenges in terms of the sector that we work in and our interest in sustainability and kind of that much bigger piece?
Yeah, so they are probably interdependent, actually.
Sure.
I think, and I'm going to take them in reverse order if I might, Neil.
Yeah, of course.
On that, and that is that I think one of the challenges that we're faced with is that there is no true joined up thinking about how we solve some of the challenges we face as humanity in this country anyway.
Yeah.
And there are so many stakeholders with different views, many of whom are entirely right and entirely valid and perfectly legitimate.
Yeah.
But it's only a perspective on part of the solution or part of the problem. And therefore getting everyone aligned to do something which is going to be sensible, well thought through, logical, sequential, all those sorts of things that you would, if you were looking at it from a project perspective, you'd say, well, actually, start with the end in mind. Who do we need? What do we need? What resources? What time frames? What timelines? What milestones, etc. You go and do it. But we don't have that, Neil, because we don't have all the information available to us. So one of the challenges is we've got lots of things to offer, but you don't always know if everyone else sees it in exactly the same way or treats it with the same priority.
Yeah.
And therefore, does everyone have the same time horizon? And would they solve it in the same way anyway? So it's like I think the challenge for the country and humanity, and I'll stick to the UK because that's mainly where we operate at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a joined up approach, and I don't think I don't blame anybody for that. I'm not someone who blames anybody for that, because actually we all have to take responsibility personally and as a company and as a country. But I think so. I think the challenge therefore is, into what do you speak, into what do you work, and what are we interested in becomes a challenge when talking to different customers. So what can we do about it? Well, I think it actually creates an opportunity, because if no one else is writing the how-to of the what we need to achieve, so if the exam question is how do you solve this problem, if people are getting closer to articulating, well, this is the problem, I think ground control is starting to get closer to this is how you might solve that problem.
Yes.
So the challenge is, I haven't got an easy question to answer. The challenge that we face is, well, can we come up with a solution that almost reframes the problem in the first place?
Yeah.
Because we just need to get ourselves thinking clearer on, what do we do about net zero, net gain? What is our contribution to net zero, net gain? We can't solve the country's problem on our own, but we can do an awful lot. And I think the more joined up we are about thinking through how we help net zero, net gain, I think we'll find more and more doors open to us. More and more people want to work with us, which helps solve how can ground control be bigger in revenue terms than it is today, more profitable than it is in revenue terms today, and also which markets, how do we get the right skills, how do we get the right people, and what's our plan for reaching the right people, both employees, staff, suppliers and customers, to go and achieve what we need to achieve. So I don't know if that's answered the question in truth or not, but it's kind of where we're at, Neil, if you think about it at a strategic level.
Yes. A couple of questions have just sprung to mind while you talk about, funnily enough, not related to that, but just because of the way you communicate and the way you come across. So one of those is, we have met a few times before, obviously outside of the podcast, and It always strikes me that you always come across as very enthusiastic. You
Right.
always seem quite upbeat, quite high
Yep.
energy. Something that's often talked about, you go onto LinkedIn or anything, is always talked about resilience and all that kind of stuff. How do you maintain your enthusiasm?
Well, it's very generous to even describe me as enthusiastic and energetic. I think I know a lot more people who've got more energy than I have. But so how because I think I love what I do because it helps connects a lot of personal things for me at a personal value level.
Yep.
With where I can see the benefits for other people.
Sure.
So the reason I stay enthusiastic is because I see a connection between where my beliefs personally and values are and how I can see ground control meeting a number of needs. So it ticks a lot of boxes, frankly, Neil, at that level. So there's a good connection between personal values, ground control's values, and the world's needs.
Yeah.
I also really like almost everyone I work with. I see huge potential in them, and I think, I want to get out of bed. I get up most days of the week at 4:45, and I'm out of the house by 5:30 in the morning because I want to get to work because there's work to do. I enjoy going to work. I like the work we do. I like the people we work with. I like the customers we've got. And so I think if you can like what you do, like the people that you work with and who you try to serve, and there's that deep connection between belief and value in permeating through all of that you can see that circle being squared. That's probably the root of why someone might describe me as enthusiastic or energetic.
And if you're happy to share, so what is that connection with your personal values?
Look, I am very open about this. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm a practicing Christian. I'm a regular churchgoer, and a lot of my life is driven by what I see in the Bible and that perspective on life, and that holistic connection between the world around us that we enjoy. The benefits that it was meant to deliver that we might have mucked up.
Yes.
And how we as people, as stewards, as people who are meant to govern, if you like, and steward the earth around us, can start to see differences in how we start to recover what we've lost and move towards the gain and intended plan in the first place. And that, for me, my personal faith in Christ, in God, and what I see from the world around us and who we're meant to be as humanity, I see that as a great opportunity for a company like Ground Control to bring a lot of those things together and square that circle in my own mind. So the conviction that people matter, the conviction that planet matters, the conviction that all people matter, actually equally, in my view. And so my EDI perspective is actually very broad because of that.
Yes.
And therefore I see the value in who you are, Neil. I see the value in who everyone I work with is. And I want to see you flourish, and I want to see you become who you're meant to be. And I think Ground Control is a place where people can be who they want to be and need to be and can be, whilst also wonderfully addressing some of the challenges the planet has. And that for me is actually very exciting.
Yeah, so that's really powerful. Yeah, really powerful. And what, for Ground Control as a business, what are you really excited about for 2024?
So we continue our growth strategy. So I love growth, I love development, I love things going well. It doesn't always go well, but
of course,
most of the time it does. All right, because we've got some great people. Okay. And we do some good things. I'm really excited about. I think there's 3 things happening next year, which are new or different for Ground Control that I'm very bullish about, and I think are good opportunities.
Right.
One is we are effectively making our first foray from being people who deal with the external environment to now dealing with things that we can do in and around the building itself. So typically over the past 50 years, and we've just completed our first 50 years of being in business.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
I won't sing happy birthday, but
No,
nobody needs to hear
bumps. I think, and we're not together anyway, but we've always been outside the building, or mostly outside the building, apart from a few kind of exceptions. Now that we are able to do things in and around the building to do with energy management, energy solutions and how we impact net zero through reducing the amount of energy and the way it's used and the type of energy that's used in and around buildings. And that service is going to be launched on the 8th of January. That for me is great. That's a really exciting and I think complementary piece and a missing piece actually that we've had. So, we've got Daniel in the business now, we've got Martin in the business now, and all of the team that's there. I'm really excited about how they're going to help customers not only think about the outside, but also the building.
And in layman's terms, what are we talking about there? We're talking like insulation and.
Yeah, so it's a good question to ask me. So it's thinking about the air conditioning in your building.
Oh, okay.
And having solar panels on your building, green roofs on your building, connecting that to EV charge points and how we manage the distribution of electricity, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So the nuts and bolts would be, should we start to install more air source heat pumps? And how we use that as part of an energy management solution and the software that goes with it. So those are all new things, components which reduce the carbon emission footprint of your building to complement a reduction in the amount of emission from your vehicles in your fleet, which would be the EV charge point installation and management, and how we use that, coupled with how we then go to your site and how we travel to your site to do the external grounds maintenance and winter maintenance and pothole repairs that we've always done. So we're now able to give people a far more holistic, complete solution around net zero and net gain, and that's launching on the 8th of January. So that's one.
Yeah.
The second thing I've just touched on there, actually, the way that we will be doing our grounds maintenance, the external space next year, will start to look differently, and that will be far more with a net zero net gain plan in mind that we can actually evidence and verify for. So that will involve what's planted where, how it's planted, what does the soil look like, what's already on site, what is it, what needs to be, what can we use, etc. And how do we just run sites differently to generate less carbon emission, net zero towards net zero, and also more biodiversity over time, net gain. Yes. So and that will also be something that we're already talking to clients about it, but we expect our pilot sites to go live in the first 3 months of 2024.
Right.
And then the third thing for me, Neil, is also the geographic diversification. So we are already working on the island of Ireland, in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, but we fully expect to, if you like, launch properly on the island, and we're expecting to open an office in Dublin, or certainly the environs of Dublin, in the first 3 months of next year as well, so that we will take more of what we do today in England, Scotland and Wales into the island of Ireland from probably April. So I'm really excited about 2 launches of something that we've never done before, something new, something old, which is being redefined and reimagined, and will change the way that we manage landscapes in the UK. That's great. And then the fact that we're going to be doing it in more countries than we currently do it today, is really getting me excited about 2024 for ground control.
Brilliant. And with the stuff over in the island of Ireland, as you put it, is the focus of that ground control as a whole over there, or will there be a specific, as in we're going to start with EV there, or we're going to start with ground maintenance there?
It's a really good question, actually, Neil. We will carry on doing the grounds maintenance that we do, but we're certainly looking to do a lot more of managing the vegetation, the trees, the shrubs, the bushes around electricity pylons. So there's a company out there called ESB. They're the equivalent of National Grid in England, if you like.
Oh, okay, right.
And so one of the things that we do for them is make sure that they can always get the electricity to our houses, our offices, our buildings, etc., by making sure that the trees don't impact the electricity wires and the pylons.
Yeah, sure.
Because that would stop electricity supply. So I think we'll be doing a lot more of making sure that people in Ireland keep the lights on, bluntly. And I think we'll probably also do a lot more on the energy side, the EV installation, the PV installation, and all the things to do with air conditioning and air source heat pumps. I think those are the areas where I'm going to see short term the biggest growth in Ireland, and probably where we'll leverage. I think the other area where I expect us to do more will be with the Irish waterways. So you probably know we do a lot for the Environment Agency in England. We do a lot for the Canal and River Trust in England, actually making sure that waterways are safe reservoirs reservoirs are safe and clean and we get good water and all that sort of stuff. Those are that's another area where I think there's a big opportunity for us on the island of Ireland in the near term. So we will be doing everything that we do everywhere else, but the starting points will be at really thinking about those key infrastructure level areas, and also thinking about how we use the energy side, because Ireland, as you're probably aware, is a country where they have even more wind and rain than we do sometimes, and therefore harnessing the
Emerald Isle,
power.
after all.
Exactly. So harnessing all of that into, helping them accelerate their journey to much lower carbon emission is the thing that we're focusing on.
I want to come back to, because I'm curious about curiosity. It's one of those things that definitely grabs me. Outside of work, so outside of GC, what are you currently curious about?
I am interested and curious about the challenge of growing homelessness in London, actually. It's one thing I'm interested in.
Interesting, yeah.
I am also passionate about, I have to be careful how I say this, I am passionate about seeing a reduction in modern slavery and the trafficking of people,
yes,
and also looking at ways in which we, the country, people, whoever, society, can help integrate or reintegrate people who have become homeless or have been victims of modern slavery, can reintegrate back into what you and I might call a more normalized lifestyle, rather than something which has been damaging to them as a person. One other area where I have to plead a degree of ignorance, Neil, and I'm happy to be quite open, because part of this is about getting to know people.
Absolutely.
An area which I'm learning a lot more about is mental well-being and mental wholeness. It's not an area that I've explored a lot in my life. I'm of an age where it wasn't something that was talked a lot about when I was young.
Yeah, absolutely.
In truth, so it's not something that I know tons about. So one of the things I'm also exploring, kind of with work and outside work at the same time, is a project that we're actually doing with one of our customers.
Okay.
So Vinci, or Vinci, depending on how you want to pronounce it, are a company that is a good customer of ours, and we're looking to do a lot more work with them. But we're working on a project with them in Watford, which is not too far from where I live, actually. But that's not the reason I'm doing it. But it just happens to be convenient. But they're working with a local charity that helps homeless people through a journey of brokenness to wholeness, is what it's described as, through interacting with nature and plants and outdoor species. So they're building a garden and are extending that garden to help people become creative again and connect with nature, that helps them on that journey from brokenness to wholeness. And they're seeing a huge amount of success in the impact that they're having. So if you like those, I love walking. I like doing other stuff, but I'm not, you're not really asking me about my hobbies, but in terms of, I like being outside, I like doing stuff, but I am interested to know how we are going to help people with various reasons for being homeless, and also the horrors of being victims of modern slavery and trafficking, etc., etc. And I think this charity in Watford has actually got a few really good ideas about how to help people actually go on the journey of reintegration and discovering wholeness again. So I'm delighted that we're working with Vinci on that, Neil.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and I'm definitely going to look further into that. So, as listeners to the podcast know, we kind of end on a slightly light-hearted, silly question. What's the weirdest piece of advice you've ever received at work in your career?
Weirdest piece of advice?
The weirdest piece of advice, yeah.
Someone once told me that, and I didn't understand it. So whether it's weird or not, I didn't understand it initially. So it probably felt weird as opposed to weird advice.
Sure.
Someone actually told me to work hard early in the morning and late in the afternoon.
Okay.
And I thought I did.
Right.
And then I started to think through, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And it made me a load more productive. I felt good about the start of my day. I felt good about the end of my day. And I actually realised I was getting a lot more done. So they'd observed in me a pattern that I'd not seen for myself, a blind spot. And I'm still in touch with a bloke today. He's a good friend of mine. He's in his late 60s, lives in Bristol. He said to me, work hard at the start, work hard at the end. And I took it on board, and I've felt more productive ever since.
Brilliant. Wow, thank you. So thanks so much for your time, Brian. That was really, really fascinating. Always interesting, kind of getting it straight from the horse's mouth, what is happening out there in the business. So thanks so much for your time today.
It was great to be with you. Thanks, Neil.
What a great episode. I think you'll agree. Please do subscribe, like, share, and until next time, take care.